Greetings everyone, so That's 9 back at it again with another reaction. So we're going to look at what it is that's going to be talked about in the second part. Because the first one is like them discussing about the concept of being able to, what does it mean to power scale them and what degree should you power scale? I've enjoyed reading your comments from the previous video about, what it is you think we should power scale. Given there's only a few, but still. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do here, considering that they're going to continue the discussion, and now we're going to be getting into the details of how would you power scale it.
How do we measure that? How do we measure how strong they are? And what I'm saying, like universe busters or planet busters or something like that. Where do we start to scale from? That's what I'm asking. I just don't know. I just really don't know. What about you? What do you think about this? I need your advice on this one.
Well, to begin is very complicated because if we were to start from the beginning, for example, we take Go Ranger or we take Ichigo, for example. For their time, they did the greatest feats that they were capable of doing for their time, and so trying to scale them towards riders like Drive and Gaim, who now with all these practical effects and their weapons and stuff like that, comparing them, bronze to actually full-scale armored heroes. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's unfair, but it's kind of unjust towards their own characters. So I think a great way to start is probably by identifying what the strongest aspects of each rider or with each Sentai character are, and trying to compare them as best as we can to the next one or to the one that we like to compare. See which aspects in which one would be more predominant as, and the other one would be more predominant in such and such. I think
that works best, so let's see how they come up with that.
Out of this, what I want to do is not mostly say who would really be stronger, but in a general sense, try and get a feel for just how much power these two can compare to each other when they're at the maximum of their abilities.
Because nobody wants to get downplayed. That's the main thing. Like, my biggest concern is that like a lot of writers just get downplayed just because of like what they can do and stuff like that. Well, we look at let's look at the statistics. I've done a lot of videos when I do the writer forms. Guys check out my channel. You like that plug, right? But a lot of the videos that I've done on my channel, when I talk about their forms, I always mention the statistics there. Punching powers in the tons, kicking powers in the tons, maximum jump height, maximum running speed. All of these numbers are very inconsistent. That's what the word I'm gonna look for. Because there's some feats that just don't make sense that can happen and others can't. I was like, okay, cool. If he's this strong with these stats, how come he can't handle this person here? Is it just because he's holding back? Does he not know his full power? What is going on here? I think a prime example of that is X8. X8 is good in terms of scaling because it lets you understand where they are in terms of level. There's no like really strong combat experience with them all, but it's more along the lines of, hey, because I'm level 50 and you're level 3, I'm gonna beat you. Or hey, because you're level 99 and I'm level 99, we're even, but it all comes down to skill. That's easy to scale. That's super easy.
Yeah.
Let's look at like this. Paradox, Kamen Rider Paradox with the gamer driver is level 99. He's greater than most of the other riders behind him. So we're talking Bang Bang Simulations. We're talking Tattle Fantasy. These guys they can't swap hands. They'll get mollywop. They'll just get slapped around. Mighty Maximum? No, Maximum Mighty, excuse me, I got that backwards. He's 99, so he can swap hands with Paradox. But now it's just along the lines of who has the better, who can get the advantage beforehand. Right. We have no idea.
What's also interesting.
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
What's also interesting that they did in X8 for the most part is there was a point in the show where they were dragging on Dangerous Zombies arc for quite a while, and it was the arc where Kuroto was going more and more crazy. And Kuroto is level 10, but level 10 in the show is not represented by a number; it's represented by a letter, which is X. So after a certain point in the show, they take the variable X and represent it as an unknown variable, which is interesting in the sense because of Dangerous Zombie's powers. Dangerous Zombie was created using some sort of unorthodox ways. So even though Emu was able to get Mighty Brothers and then Maximum Mighty, this Kuroto, as level X, as level 10, was still able to withstand a lot of their attacks, even though they were a higher level, mostly because of his Dangerous Zombie abilities where he could regenerate as part of the Gashat's own unique abilities in itself. Yeah. But it's also an interesting interpretation because at that moment, it's almost as if it's not level 10 anymore, but it's, as he said, level X, because it was created in an unorthodox way, outside of the usual realm where Gashats are created. So I thought that's interesting to note, especially during that arc where X8 power levels were sort of in doubt by most of the fans.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Oh, well.
Yeah, because X8 is the easiest to power scale given how they do have the levels, they have the different forms, and they all have their level 10, level 3, level 1, level 99, level like double X or X or whatever it was for those special ones. But yeah, the fact that they actually had levels helps with the scaling. But the problem is you can't scale that for every Kamen Rider. Like there's this form, that form, and that form, and it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like Power Rangers. It's kind of like, sorry, not Power Rangers. We're talking about Power Rangers. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z once more, another anime reference. But yeah, it's kind of like Dragon Ball Z, where you have the Super Saiyan times 50. You have Kaioken times all these individual multipliers. Yeah, it's hard to think about it. Like when you think about like Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 4, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan. Try saying that so 5 times fast. Anyway, yeah, when you have to scale that big, it gets muddled really quickly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they can break down about this.
We got to level 10. We could see level 10. Well, that was what Mighty Brothers was level 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like 2 5s, I guess. I don't know how you want to do it.
Mighty Brothers was level 1. Their level 1 kind of chibi form was level 10, and then when they split in 2, that was level 20.
Okay, so they were level 20. Okay, I didn't know that part. See, I'm learning stuff. Yeah, I'm learning stuff. But
that's why double X. One X is 10, the other 10 is X, and then they make the 20. There you go.
I got you. So these guys were like Molly Whopping Dangerous Zombie, but just like you said though, like Dan was tanking a lot of those blows. Like obviously he's the tankiest guy in this show. Like he can take blows all day, and he can either stand up or he'll be unaffected by it. But he usually catches his wind and he comes back from it like exponentially. And I think that's really cool to see that. But the X variable is something that comes into play too, because just like you said, it's like it seems like X could be whatever I need it to be. So if I need X to equal 50, I can make X equal 50. If I need X to equal 30, you can equal 30. I know I just went like lower there, but that's the point I'm trying to drive across there. Then what about guys who don't even have levels, or we're getting things that supersede stuff? You know, Tattle Legacy's 100. I have no idea what like Muteki is. Is Muteki just like max, or infinite, or what? Or what is Chronos? Like what levels are those guys? But without even having those levels, we know these guys are ridiculous.
These guys have established.
True.
Oh, excuse me.
It's been established that for specifically Chronos and Muteki, both of those characters have exceeded the range of levels. And it's even mentioned in the toy ad for Hyper Muteki. It says, Ureveru o koeta. That means I've surpassed all levels. So surpassing all levels, going beyond 99, which is considered to be the maximum, going beyond 100, it sort of gives a basis, or justification at least, to the reason why Muteki is invincible. You can't touch him because there's no level for you to influence or reduce or even scale or compare him to, because he's invincible. So the only reason I felt that they could represent that accurately was that they had him surpassing all levels. Chronos came first, and by the fact that he has the pause ability, it already makes him sufficiently advanced, or more advanced than all the other riders in that point in time. So the only force able to surpass the unsurpassable was something else that had to be surpassed. So they created Muteki, then Kuroto created Muteki. Gosh, I love that guy. He created Hyper Muteki. He surpassed all the levels, and that way they were able to counteract Chronos. So in a general standing point, both those forms don't have levels, but for those reasons, I think it's justified.
Okay, that really makes sense. How do you feel? Would you feel about like? So here's like where we would get those arguments. Like, well, how would Chronos or Hyper Muteki fare against someone like Gaim? You know, that's like practically Jesus. Like, in final episode, he showed us he doesn't even need, the Sengoku driver to transform. He could just say henshin, and then bam, he gets his armor, and he goes straight into Kiwami arms. But, there's so many arguments and stuff like that. You can say stat for stat, this is this, and this is this. But if we're talking stats, that would make, I'll use double stuff for example. If we look at Fang Joker and Cyclone Joker Extreme, stat-wise, Cyclone Joker Extreme is weaker than Fang Joker. However, Cyclone Joker Extreme has like the knowledge of everything on the planet Earth, which is absolutely amazing in and of itself. So, does the lack of numbers be justified by like what kind of abilities they have? Because that's another interesting thing we could talk about and think about too.
Yeah, I believe that the fact that the numbers are able to be justified in a sense where it's a physical fight, and for shows like Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, there generally is a physical fight in the beginning, before or after they do end up resorting to their own unique abilities.
Yeah.
So I guess in terms of power scaling during the time of fighting in which they are directly confronting each other physically with violence, there is a moment where the very same stats, whether we know they're officially confirmed or not, are actually able to surpass the other one in terms of fighting abilities. Whether or not that's taken into account in the Tyson movies, I don't think it is. It's just whose rider kick ends up looking cooler than the other one. But when it comes down to terms of abilities,
I mean, yeah, when you break it down that way, it's like, whose kick is cooler? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch it. I'm sorry, I couldn't help but do that little one. It just came up immediately as soon as they said, like, whose kick looks better? You, or you, or you, or you.
I believe the range of abilities that can be explored if both individuals are at the maximum of their power, it's definitely turns out to be more of a fight of chance, depending on which rider or which Sentai uses their abilities in the most creative way. So in the example you gave, which was Gaim Kiwami versus Exade Muteki, Exade Muteki is invincible. And in the show, we see that you can't even touch the guy because he's so fast, or your hand passes right through him. He's incredibly quick. I want to believe that his abilities are subject to the game that he plays. So within the game area, at the very least, his abilities are enhanced to the point where they're at that level. I don't know if whenever XA transforms, I believe, because we've been shown this before, every area he's in becomes the game area. So if we base it on that, at least, and we bring in Gaim Kiwami arms, Gaim Kiwami would probably be able to use all the resources he has around him, for example, summoning all the rider weapons, Helheim probably, though not really Helheim because Helheim's on another planet now, so that's kind of a disadvantage. And then, you have their confrontations as far as that goes. I can't really say because there's no solid marker, because they both are at the maximum height of their abilities, but it's all about how they handle themselves in that situation.
Yeah.
I understand. I agree with that. See, this is another reason why I like power scaling so hard too, because when you make the scenario or the situation, I argue that there are not enough feats that is shown outside of their universe for it to really give you a good idea of what goes on. Because scaling a writer would also mean scaling the kaijin of that series.
Yeah.
Which is exceptionally hard, because let's look at the movies. Whenever there's a summer movie out for a writer and they do a sneak peek of the newer writer that'll be coming up in the later series, the later seasons, we watch that new writer in base form, I add, defeat a villain that was higher in level, that took one of the newer forms of the previous writer to defeat him. I'll give you a prime example. The 4-Day summer movie, where they had to fight all of the replica Zodiarts? Was it
Zodiarts?
Zodiarts. Excuse me, why did I say Zodiarts? Zodiarts. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! In my Zodiarts. They had to fight all of
Yu-Gi-Oh!
these extra ones, and then these guys go straight into all of their different forms. Meteor and Force are just going in all their forms, really knocking them all out. I think movie versions of the writers are stronger than their TV counterparts, off of that logic, just for the sake of the movie and moving the story along.
Yeah.
But when Wizard showed up, Wizard bodied 3 people, 3, 4, 5 people by itself. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know the exact number, but he bodied them all in base form. So by that logic, would that mean that base form Wizard is stronger than Forze and Meteor by that logic? Is that how that works? It's how do you keep the scale going when you do something like that? How do you keep everything leveled and things of this nature? And then next time you look at Decade, Decade is one of those characters who's I'll destroy everybody. If Decade's not even statistically stronger than most of the other writers, who do have access to their hyper forms, and he's said to destroy them all, what does that say about Decade? It's too many loose ends and too many phrases that are too vague that we get in these series. They make it really hard to discuss how powerful a writer or Super Sentai member, to be exact, is. And I think it's harder to scale them in Kamen Rider than it would be in Super Sentai.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Right.
Yeah, all fair points at that point. With movies, you have to make sure the movie happens, so the scaling gets a bit muddled for the sake of the story, the plot armor, or whatever you want to do, the special event, the new form for the movie that you unlock, so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a bit messy at that point. Yeah. But so the point stands that when you break it down, in the end, you do have new forms to scale, which means that the scaling still becomes muddled. No matter what you do, the scaling is hard to do. So in order to power scale it, you'd have to, I guess in the power scale, it'd have to depend on their own universe. If you try and go outside the universe to compare them, they lose a lot of logic really quick. There's no good way you could go about it for that situation. Because, each writer has their scaling in that universe. But we'll see about how they break that down next time. In the meantime, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I certainly did. Let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? How would you go about this? Would you keep them in their own universe? Would you try and compare them with I guess the best way to say it is shared universe writers? I guess see if you could find the same writers from the same universe and see how they compare to each other in the end. How would you do it? Let me know down in the comments below. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Let's keep on spreading this Toku content and also this discussion to other people. You guys take care. Looking forward to seeing how the discussion continues, and I'll see you all in part 3. Bye!